There are a lot of things that was in my way and in the kids' way. There are a lot of things that people did not want to see happen. And I told them, in order for something to work, you have to make it work.
Welcome everyone to Hockey Culture. This is the place where we're trying to change the culture of hockey, one interview at a time. We've got a special guest today. We have U.S. Hockey Hall of Famer, Coach Neal Henderson. Coach, how you doing?
Doing fine. Thank you very much, Anson. I'm glad to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. I want to go back to 1978. It's almost as old as I am, born in 1974. You started the Fort Dupont Ice Hockey Club, the oldest minority-led hockey club in the country, in North America. What led you to starting the Cannons back in 1978?
Well, my son, he was playing football, and there was nothing else to do after football except wait for snow and go skiing. So we started playing ice hockey in the driveway of my house, and all the other kids in the neighborhood saw what we were doing, and they started enjoying the fact that we were playing ice hockey out in the driveway with a ball and some hockey sticks and our tennis shoes. So my son come up with the idea, why don't I start a hockey team? First, my son was the only one that knew how to ice skate because I ice skated. I said, well, I got to train all the kids. I said, and when I do that, then we have to think about equipment and things of that sort. And I wanted to find out from the parents if the parents would let me take the kids to the rink, because a lot of them didn't have the idea of their kids skating. They wanted to go into basketball. And I told them I played basketball too when there was nothing else to do. They decided to let me take their kids with my son to the ice rink. So I taught them all how to skate. Then afterwards, they said, when are we going to play some hockey? So then I had to decide on renting the ice. So I rented the ice, and it was only about 9 of us. And I saw this kid looking through the glass at us skating. And I went over to him and I says, you want to do this? He says, I can't skate. I says, I'll teach you to skate. I said, but you got to ask your parents. So the first thing that his mother said was, I don't have any money. And I know this costs money. I said, I didn't ask her for any. I asked you for your kid. She says, well, if he wants to do it, but who's going to bring him home? I says, I'll bring him home. I'll make sure he gets home. So I had this truck, and I had all of these kids in my truck. And I took him home, and she thanked me. And before the kid gets out the truck, he says, when are you coming back to the rink? And I told him, I said, I'll be back next week, and you will be able to get a stick in your hand, and I'll let you have a stick, and we'll start with that, just you and me, because the other kids will be playing a little more advanced. So when I came back to the rink with all the other kids, there was 4 other kids with him. And he says, can they play? These are my cousins. So I said, well, I says, you got to get their parents. I said, they just can't come on the ice. He told his cousins, he said, well, go get your mother and your dad and come up and meet the coach. So they did, and they came back, and all of them had the same thing. Says they didn't have any money for this. And I said, just give me a kid. We'll worry about all kind of monies later. So now I got 20 kids. So now we got enough that we can work with and play shinny. So the whole season went that way. And they said, what are we going to do for uniforms? We want to play other people. I said, oh, you're not ready for that yet. I said, maybe next year. I said, next year you'll be ready. So now I'm telling the wife, I said, you know, I got myself into something that my son has all of his friends and kids at the rink want to do now. So she says, well, you got to go through with it. You started it. and it's been going ever since.
That's amazing. I mean, I've always said that hockey is a sport that kids would love to try, but the most difficult thing is trying to get their parents to get them and allow them to play the game. Like, we share a mutual Caribbean connection. You're from St. Croix. My parents are Bajan from Barbados. And we always say in our household that the only time ice comes up in the Caribbean is when we put it in our drinks. You know, we never think about playing hockey and being on the ice. So that's always been the toughest thing. But you've been able to convince parents to let their kids play. We'll work the money out later. We're going to focus on the kids part. We're going to make this game accessible. Have those conversations been easier over the years as you've had more success? Like, you've impacted over 1,500 kids there in that DC area. Now, do you have that credibility now when Coach Henderson comes to the room, parents aren't going to question whether or not you're doing the right thing. They'll say, oh, yeah, that's Coach Henderson, the Cannons. We know that program. Our kids are in good hands.
Well, the thing is that I tell each one that you have to do something for yourself. There are a lot of things that was in my way and in the kids' way. There are a lot of things that people did not want to see happen. And I told them, in order for something to work, you have to make it work. So what we did was we started selling fruit, and we sold raffle tickets, and other people saw that we were doing something. So people don't mind helping people who are trying to help themselves. And I've always said, it's better to get a hand up than a hand out. And the reason why I say that is, if somebody's seeing you trying to do something, somebody don't mind helping you. But if you're sitting there with your hand out, that person might not come back again because he sees that you're not trying to do something. And this is what I've taught the children. Always work for something, and it will turn into something if you make it happen.
Now, how is the program embraced in the Black community? Did people look at you like, Coach Henderson's crazy? He's trying to get this program going. It's a white sport. Or did people rally behind you and say, yeah, we could do this. This is something different. Let's give this a try.
Well, one of the things that I have taught the kids, regardless of color, I taught them the history of hockey, how it started, who has made the greatest impact in the hockey community, but it has been ignored up until a few years ago. A lot of people don't know how long and how far hockey goes back to the Black community. They don't know that a lot of the things that happened in ice hockey started from the Black community in playing hockey. You look at the first 6 professional hockey teams. You relate that back to the 6 Black coaches in Nova Scotia who had hockey teams. So if we look at how things materialize through the years and how history has sometimes forgotten what has happened in the past, and now it's beginning to come to the future, and now in the public's eye as part of what's going on in the success of hockey, you're now beginning to see that a lot of the Black players are being looked at, who are beginning to make the impact that Black people want to see in the game. Because a lot of times the old expression is, there's nobody playing it, so why should I? When it's not looked at in the sense of, just because they're not there doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Somebody somewhere is doing what you think is not going on.
Do you think that history was accidentally forgotten? You have the Jubilees, the Eurekas, the first slap shot was taken in those Black leagues. Goalies making saves on their knees, which eventually became the butterfly save that we know Patrick Roy made popular. All those things originated in those Black leagues you're talking about. Do you think that people purposely eliminated that stuff out of that game to maybe not have as many black players get involved?
Well, I think what has happened through the years is that where hockey started, where it was cut off at, what was remembered, and what has been subtracted, and what has been added on, and what has been denounced has caused us not to remember. And in those segments, things are not written about because they didn't know about. And when they found out about it, it was either I didn't know, or nobody told me, or I never heard of it, or that old guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or he can't show me anything. But most of our success has come from our seniors. Our whole lives are built on for what our forebears have taught us. We've just expanded it. And some of us are brave enough to speak about it and let other people know about it. But now there's so many things that you can relate back to. One of the greatest things that are out is the computer, and how you can go back so far into history with the computer.
No, there's no excuse now for players coming up not to understand the history. When I was growing up, we had encyclopedias. And if you didn't have like the D or the E, you'd go to your neighbors and borrow theirs. So now the internet, there's no excuse for kids understanding the history of the game. You're talking about your elders. Well, I speak to my parents all the time, and I'm so blessed to learn about the knowledge about Bajan heritage. When they first came to Canada, a lot of the lessons they passed along to me that I passed along to my kids. And you actually learned about the game of hockey living in St. Catharines. Your dad was a merchant marine, I believe, when he was traveling, and actually picked up on the love of the game. What was it like when you were in St. Catharines and trying to understand and play the game for the first time?
Well, the thing that really got to me as far as the coldness, it took a while for me to get used to the coldness. And the coldness bothered my head more than any other part of my body. And once I got to the point wherein I could cover my head and breathe the cold air and find out that once you're there, all of a sudden that disappears from you because you stop thinking about it, and you begin to find out that the more you circulate yourself through what's going on, the cold air doesn't bother you as much. And then you find out that you're doing the same thing that the other kids are doing, and you're enjoying what you're doing. The coldness doesn't bother you as much until you sit down and want to take a rest, and you got to get up in a hurry and get yourself back to going again. But I enjoyed it because when I was at home, we used to roller skate on the bandstand, and that was the only place where it was smooth concrete. So getting your balance back again was easy when it comes to ice skating. And if we look at the skates today, the skates that we're using today, we can't skate on them like we used to use the old skates. The old skates were about what? 3/4 of an inch higher, wearing your boot wouldn't touch the ice until you laid down on your edge to go around on your cuts. But today, you lay your boot down, you're going down with your boot because your edges are going to leave you. But in the old skates, when they were leather, they'd get soft and you could lay down on that edge and come on around.
And speaking of your dad, being the merchant marine that he was, I mean, how proud are you to have past Cannon alumni, Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Featherstone? He was the commanding officer of the U.S. Marine Fighter Attack Squadron 225, and he's also the first black captain of the U.S. Naval Academy hockey team. How proud are you that you have a Cannon alumni now out there in the real world doing big things, Coach?
It's amazing to think that I had my little finger involved in something as large as all of that, you know. And to know that Ralph has gone so far in the military, but he's not the only one. You know, I've had 4 other kids that have gone into the Air Force, and helicopter pilots, cargo pilot, and one is with robots in the Air Force. I'm quite happy at the fact that I've told these kids that you can make something of yourself, by yourself, and with yourself. Just don't let other people think that you can't do it. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Keep moving. Don't let what people say you can't do prove them wrong. Don't prove them right.
Well, you've inspired someone like Lieutenant Colonel Featherstone, clearly, but I want to flip it on you. How have these cannons inspired you, Coach?
Well, I've got longevity so far from just working with those kids. I feel great every time I can get a chance to go to the rink, put my arm around one of them, and listen to him ask me questions, and I got the answers that he want to hear, and give him the advice that he can hear that maybe someone in his family said the same thing, but he gets more of a belief from me. When I have kids come to me and it says, "You're the only dad that I've ever known." And it makes me feel a part of their life that I've been able to fulfill something that he has wanted.
No, that's amazing. And you're talking about keeping you young, 82 years old, looking like you're 45 years old, a lot of energy, you know, very inspirational. But I want to ask you about the Mark Messier Leadership Award. NHL gave you that award. And It's nice to get recognized. Everyone loves to get recognized. But what does leadership mean to you? I played with Mess in New York. He's the ultimate leader, won 6 Stanley Cups in National Hockey League. And you were recognized as being this leader in the community. When you talk to your kids, you want to explain leadership. How would you explain leadership to the young Cannon disciples?
Well, one of the things that I tell them is that first you have to admire what you have done by listening to people who want to encourage you to do something that's right. And education is the key to all knowledge. And what you have to do with that knowledge is to affirm yourself that this is what you have to have first. And I use ice hockey as a key to education. Now, some of you will make it as far as you can playing hockey in college. Some of you will stop after high school. But what you have is the feeling that you have belonged to something that cared about you as much as you've cared about it. And I have people coming back to me that are 40, 50, and 60 years old saying thanks for what you have done to lead me to where I am today.
I remember when the Caps went on that Stanley Cup run against the Vegas Golden Knights, we did our pregame shows there, and there's a sea of red behind us. I was totally blown away as a former Capital player myself. I didn't realize the sea of red was that deep in the community. But what struck me the most is seeing all the minority faces, the black faces, the people of color in the crowd jumping on that bandwagon, supporting the Washington Capitals. What was it like when the Caps brought the Stanley Cup to Fort Dupont? What was the reaction with the kids when they saw the Stanley Cup actually in the building, Coach?
It was ecstatic, you know, it was a surprise for them. But to see a historic piece of history that they could touch, and knowing how historic that was compared to any other piece of athletic endeavors in life they see on TV, but to have it brought in their community, it meant so much to them to know that the Washington Capitals thought that much of them to bring it to them, and to have their players there with them, and to be able to touch these players and to go out on the ice with them when they come to visit them. It means so much to them because these are things that happen to them that I tell them all the time is that makes you a special person. And when it makes you a special person, you have to do special things in order to get special rewards. This doesn't happen to everyday people. It happens to special people.
You got that right. I mean, just think about the keeper of the cup. What other championship trophy do you see the keeper of the cup walking around with white gloves on?
Yeah.
That just lets you know this is a special trophy. But I look at the Washington Capitals, like that's the trifecta when it comes to black hockey excellence. So you have yourself working at the grassroots level since 1978. You have Earl Stafford and Sheila Johnson, two black owners with Monumental Sports and Ted Leonsis that own the Washington Capitals that won the Stanley Cup. You also had Devontae Smith-Pelly scoring big goals for the Capitals. I really felt those would be interesting touch points to show kids in the DC area, or even in North America, period, that regardless of what level you want to get involved with hockey, there's something there for you if you're showing a little bit of interest in the game.
Sure. Yes. And the funny part of that is you don't always have to be on ice to play hockey. You can just have the thought that you want to play this game, and it can be played on concrete, on the grass, you know, in the driveway, anywhere where there's a level playing field for a kid to do it. And if he wants to advance in that, then he can go further with it. There are a lot of other sports that you can't do that with. And it makes it much easier for a lot of kids to become involved if they want to take that extra step forward. Mm-hmm. And not only that, if an individual has to think about something, ice hockey is a very, very intelligent sport. You're doing 6 things at one time. And what other sport can you think and do it like that? You know, you play baseball, you're standing there waiting on the pitcher, and the coach is telling you what to do. But when you're playing ice hockey, you're an individual in a 5-man team, and you're watching the other players, so that if you have to pass, you have to skate, you have to be in contact with the other player, you have to be in sync with the other player. You have to think what that defenseman is going to try and do to keep you from being where you are. You have to think about what's going to happen if this doesn't work. You have to put yourself in a position to recover quickly so that you can get back with the puck in case you should lose it. So there's a lot of things going on at the same time when you're trying to control the puck. So with that in mind, you can't be one that's going to sit back and say, oh, I can't do this. It is an aggressive sport. You have to think in an aggressive manner, and you have to control your thoughts and your emotions all at the same time.
What lessons, Coach? Those are all great nuggets, of course. What lessons do you teach your kids that have come through the Cannons program that you've learned from playing ice hockey that you can apply and use towards everyday life? Because not everyone's going to play pro when it comes to hockey, but everyone has a chance to go pro when it comes to business.
First thing is respect yourself first. Then you are able to respect somebody else. And at that time of respecting somebody else, put yourself in their place. If you do not want to hurt somebody else's feelings, think of how they might feel if you do. But be respectable to other people. Don't look at their color, look at their heart. See if you can match that heart with that person. And go on and live your life the best that you can. And treat that other person with dignity and respect.
Take me back to that moment, Coach, when you had received that phone call and they said, Coach Neal Henderson, yes, you've been accepted into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. I mean, back in 1978 when you were starting the Cannons, I'm sure this isn't what crossed your mind when you started the program up, but what was your reaction like, and who was around you when you received that phone call, and were you expecting the phone call?
No, I had no idea. It was a total shock. I think I was speechless for about 15 seconds, and I wasn't sure if I was still on the telephone or I had hung up. But it was a total shock. After I remembered Dave Fisher's from USA Hockey, and I hung the phone up and I sat in the chair, and I remember holding my head, and I guess I didn't breathe for a while, and I started thinking, is this for real or am I dreaming? And my wife was upstairs and I was down here in the rec room, and I hollered up to her and I says, sweetheart, I just got a telephone call, but I think it was a telephone call or I was asleep. I don't remember. I said, well, I think I was dreaming. I got a call from Dave Fisher from USA Hockey saying I'm in the Hall of Fame. And she says, you're joking again? And I said, no, and she didn't say anything for a while. So both of us were quite quiet for a little bit, It finally sank in. And then I said, it must be true. And I guess it was about an hour and a half later, I got another call from Dave. And he says, do you remember talking to me? And I said, yes, Dave, I remember talking to you. He says, well, congratulations. I said, well, thank you very much. I said, I thought I was dreaming. I maybe doze off or sleep. He said, no, it's for true. He said, you're in the Hall of Fame, and I'll be sending you some information and everything like that. But it was a total shock. I had no idea that this was happening to me. I never thought that I would be thought of in that manner. And it still hits me at times that, they put me in the Hall of Fame for just working with kids, and I never did it for anything like this. I never had any idea that I was thought of from so many people for just working with kids. The love that I have for kids and the passion that I had for hockey, knowing that I could keep a kid happy by slapping a puck around and having a kid know that he could always call me, and if he needed me to come past for me to talk to him at the rink, or he needed some advice about something, I was always there for him. When other people had turned their back, I would be able to look him in the face. And he's always thought of me in that way. Even the young ladies that have played for me, a lot of them would always say that they wish that I would be around them more than what I was and what I've meant so much to them. And I would get letters and thank you notes from parents and things of that sort, which was more than money could ever be, to know that I've helped somebody somewhere along the way. And I tell a joke sometimes to the kids and to the parents. I said, when I wake up in the morning and I go in to take my bath and I look in the mirror and the first thing I do is scream. I said, but after I scream, then I go on and take my bath. And then I say, I hope that I can be of help to somebody today. And I've always said that. And I feel that if everybody said that, we'd be in a different world than what we are today.
Well, Coach, you certainly have. I mean, over 1,500 kids you've impacted, over 43 years, this program is still going strong. The hockey community, it's we can't be more thankful enough, to be honest with you. I mean, to see the Washington Capitals get involved, to see you get recognized, U.S. Hockey Hall of Famer, the first Black U.S. Hockey Hall of Famer. There's, joining two other players of people of color, Mr. Bocha and also Billy Guerin, who's of Nicaraguan descent. But I think it's been amazing honor because now you've got players and people involved in the game that are looking at you as a beacon, just like how people look at Willie, in the Hockey Hall of Fame too, and think that, yes, we can, or why can't we? Coach Neal Henderson, he did it. And why you did it is the most important thing for me. You weren't doing it for monetary reasons. You're just trying to help people. And it's amazing how far that could go, especially the way your son was playing or another child is playing, and they brought another friend along. They brought another friend along. They brought another friend along. And before you know it, we're at over 1,500 kids. Coach, I want to thank you. I can't thank you enough. I mean, what you're doing is amazing. It's obviously keeping you young. 82 years old. I can't believe it, Coach. I hope I look that good when I'm 82 years old. Thank you for what you've done for the game of hockey. Appreciate you joining us with Hockey Culture today, Coach.
It's my pleasure. Anytime you need me, all you have to do is pick up the phone.